is hot in my shop, so forgive me for sweating. This video is about a GE refrigerator I have that doesn't cool very well. The freezer ices up all over the place, and the freezer will barely keep ice. It keeps it half water, half ice, and the refrigerator stays warm. If you have a GE refrigerator doing this same thing, stay tuned. I'm about to get into it and show you it's pretty easy to fix in most cases. All right, here we go. This is my GE refrigerator that will not stay cool. It is a model number, see if you can see that there, you probably can't. All right, there you can. Model number G as in golf, S as in Sierra, H as in hotel, 25K as in kilo, G as in golf, P as in papa, A as in apple, / Bravo Bravo. The fixes I'm going to show you work for more than just that model fridge. There are a lot of GE refrigerators have these parts. Now I've already got my freezer torn apart. That's all the stuff that had to come out. Don't panic when you see this. It's very easy to take this thing apart. I'll show you what the freezer looks like on the inside right now. Down on the bottom, there's a defrost heater that mounts right there. It mounts with 2 screws. The blue wire pushes onto the left side and the pink wire pushes onto the right side. If that defrost heater is bad, you will have ice all over those coils. It'll be slap full. There's a plastic sheet that goes in front of that. I'll show you the plastic sheet. It'll mount right there. So when you look inside your freezer, you'll see that plastic sheet. If that plastic sheet has ice on it from top to bottom, you most likely have a bad defrost heater. The part to fix this, plus you can get this sensor here, which is the, I believe it's the defrost sensor. And this is a temperature sensor that clips on the line right here. You can get all of those things in a kit for $18. That sensor right there that I just clipped on, that sensor right there. And if you see the bottom of that sensor that's facing the camera where the 2 orange wires go in, if that is flat, that sensor is probably good. If that sensor is bulging, that sensor needs to be changed. One other thing to check is this fan. If that fan is not spinning, you can hear it when you open the freezer. If you hear that fan spinning, it's most likely okay. But if you want to disassemble the freezer like I did to check it, to see how it spins, it should spin and move a good amount of air. If it's spinning really slow, or you can't reach in there with your fingers and spin that thing really easily, that fan can also be bad. I've changed one in another freezer and that was bad. That's what the problem was, but this one is not that. I'm going to show you one other thing real quick to check. Give me just a minute. All right, I have the refrigerator pulled out and I'm going to show you 2 other things to check. These are probably the most common issues with these units, all refrigerators for that matter. Inside here are your coils. I don't know how good you can see in there. Yeah, you can see that pretty good. See those coils? If those are slap full of dust, you need to get a blower or some compressed air and get that stuff out of there. Also, on the left-hand side of those coils in this end, there's a fan. If that fan doesn't spin, it can't pull hot air through those coils, thereby allowing the refrigerator to cool. So check here first. There's just a couple small bolts that come out, and this whole thing pops off. So pop that whole silverback piece off, check those coils, blow the dust off of them. And some refrigerators, you want to keep in mind, some of them have coils. They may start in the back and then go all the way to the front. So you can come to the front of the refrigerator, look on the bottom. There's a little, I don't know what you call it, like a grill. It pops right out. There's 2 little springs. You can just pull it right off from the front, the very bottom underneath both those doors, one long piece. Pull that out if you have coils that go that far. Clean all that out and keep it clean. If you don't vacuum the dust up, the refrigerator will just suck the dust right back up underneath there. In a couple months, it'll be dirty again, and your refrigerator will probably stop cooling. Excuse me for breathing heavy. I'm big as all outdoors, and it's about 200 degrees in this shop. My parts have come in today, so I'm going to show you some things in case you decide to take your freezer apart like I did. I'll show you ways to test the different parts. This particular sensor, this is your freezer sensor. You can test that. Let's see, that's this one right here. You can take those wires loose and you have to test that sensor. You test it with ohms. It has to be at freezing temperatures. So 32 degrees Celsius. And for you people from Canada, I don't have any idea. But 32 degrees Celsius, that's when you want to test that sensor. There are some contacts in there, and they only make contact or let go. I can't remember, but they only do one or the other when it's at freezing temperatures. The other sensor, the little smaller white one over here, I really don't know how you test that one. I think it's just continuity using your ohms meter. So there's only those two things to check. The actual defrost heater that goes down there that hooks to those two wires, and this fan on the inside. So that's really easy. And all of this stuff comes out very easily. It's just a few screws to pull stuff out. That's not the hardest part. Is this freezer it's so narrow, a feller my size can barely get in there. But I'm going to open these doors back up. Let that thing stay open, and we'll go look at some parts real quick. All right. Excuse my mess. This is the old heater that came out. This is the old defrost heater. I don't know how well you can see, but you can tell that one's got some age on it. There's a coil of wire that runs through there to the other end. And if you can notice, do you see that orange seal right there? That's a seal that protects the element inside there from getting moisture in it. This seal was in the other end. It was so brittle that it just fell out. So there's not even a seal in that end. So I asked the guy how to test this, and I'm gonna put a link to his channel in the video's description. Got to give a huge shout out to him. Had it not been for him, I wouldn't have known what to check. And I asked that man 9 or 10 different questions, and he still answered all my questions. Got to give a shout out to a YouTuber who still takes time to answer his people. That's beautiful, and I appreciated him for that. So I wanted to give him credit in this video, and I'll put a link in the description. And you can go watch his video in case mine is confusing. He also sells all the parts that you will need for this. With that being said, let me get the multimeter out and get the tripod set up, and I'll show you how to test this one so you can test yours if you think that's what's wrong with yours, and you'll know whether you have a bad one. Like I said, again, this new heater and those other two parts were only $18 total. So I mean, that's a very cheap fix for a nice refrigerator. Give me just a moment, I'll be right back. Okay, I have my meter on ohms. I'm going to put it on the I'm going to start with the X100 setting. It'll say X100 on the ohms setting, and if I touch the two meter probes together, see how the needle moves? So we're now going to test the defrost heater. It only has two places. There's one on each end. And if you look down in these two holes, only one has a metal probe in there. Same thing on the other end. Two holes, only that end one has that metal probe. So what we're going to do is we're going to stick 1 meter lead in one hole, 1 meter lead in the other, and it doesn't matter which because you're just testing continuity and ohms resistance. I now have both ends of those meter leads in those contacts, and you can see there's no movement whatsoever on that needle on 100 ohms, X100. So we're going to set it to X10. Put those meter leads back in the same spots. Make sure you're touching the little metal prongs in there. I'm touching them. There's absolutely no reading whatsoever. We're going to try it on X1. That's the lowest setting that it'll go. Putting the leads back in, touching those little metal prongs. I'm touching them now. There's no reading whatsoever. So you can see if I touch them together like this, there's a reading. But when we're touching them in the heater, there's no reading. That tells you that your heater's bad. So for me, this is pretty much a clear picture of what's going on. I've got a bad defrost heater. So I'm going to throw this one away and install the new one. Give me just a minute to get set up over there, and I will try to have the camera in the way where you can see me install all these parts. It's a really tight fit in there, so I can't guarantee I'm going to be able to do that, but I will try. So stay tuned. I'll be right back. Okay, here are my parts. All of my parts, I've taken them out of their packaging, except for these. Let me get these springs out of the way. That's for another project. I'm trying to fix the riding lawnmower for an elderly lady who lives down the road for free for her, if I can fix it. So again, this is the defrost sensor. This is what tells your defrost, your defroster, your defrost heater to kick on. So this sensor could be bad. If it's bad, you see how that's flat on the black side right here, the back side? If that black stuff is bulging up, like the old style popcorn that you used to put on top of your stove, if that's bulging up, this is bad and needs to be replaced. If it's not bulging up, you can test this by freezing it and you just test your ohms resistance off the two leads that are right here. And at a freezing temperature, I don't know if you should get a reading or you should not, but I'm going to link that other video in my video so you can see, you can find out, you know, how to test it successfully. This is just the temperature sensor, and these can go bad also, but I don't think they go bad very often. However, I'm going to change mine because I have it brand new. This is my brand new heater. Just like the other heater, it only has the little prong in one end, that very far end one. Same thing on the other end. I don't know if you can see that. On the meter, setting the ohms to X100, X10, and X1, we didn't get any reading whatsoever. And in order to show you what a good one should look like, I'm going to test the new one. It doesn't matter which lead you put where, you're only testing ohms resistance. So let's see, one in there, one in there. All right, needle goes all the way across. You see that? Watch my meter. Needle goes all the way across. That's on the X100 setting. Turning my meter on the X10 setting on the ohms. Testing again. Needle still goes all the way across. Watch the meter. Needle goes all the way across. Put it on X1 setting. All right, so that's probably the correct setting. On X1, the meter swings almost halfway, not quite. So now we know, for me at least, my defrost heater was what was bad. I am still going to change all three of these parts because they're new and I've got it torn apart. You'd be crazy not to. The kit only cost $18. While you have it torn apart, go ahead and replace it all. Give me a minute to get tools and get set up. I'm going to try to put the camera in the freezer so you can see me replace all this stuff. I don't know how well that's going to work out because I'm big as all outdoors and can barely get in the freezer myself, but let's see what we can do. Okay, this should be reasonably easy. The defrost heater, all it does is it just sits right here. Let's see. I think it just sits just like that. Yep, that's what it does. Yeah, it just sits right in front. And then you just put those two little clips on. So I'm going to put my clips on before I do that. So you just flip it upside down, put your little clip in there, in the very end hole, and just squeeze it up in there. Super easy. Nothing to it. All right. Then put your two screws back in. So hold on just a moment. Let me get my drill. This might be a little bit tricky, but I doubt it. Won't be too bad. All right. Trying to get both my meat hooks in here at the same time. That's a joy. You may want to rent a small guy for this. All right, one side is on. Sorry if I'm making a lot of noise and shaking it around. These tabs, they're easy to bend. So if your screw holes don't quite line up, just push them where they're supposed to be. Be careful you don't cut yourself on this metal. All right, that's all there is to it. Now, my heater has been reinstalled. I'm going to go watch another video for just a minute to make sure I didn't install that thing upside down. I don't think I did, but I want to be sure. If I did, I'll let you know. Be right back. Okay, I didn't think that looked right. I do have mine installed wrong. So I'm going to take it back out. This will only take a second. It pays to save those videos to your watch later list in YouTube so you can refer back to them. I will now show you the correct way to install this, not how I did it. Please forgive me for that. This refrigerator's been sitting for over a week and I couldn't remember which way it went back in. Okay, so it goes back in like this. So if you look at this heater, this part goes straight back. So it's going to sit up there like that. And it'll sit on top of those two. See how it hangs by itself? That's what the little clips are for. Right here. So pink will go on this side, underneath. Blue will go on this side, underneath. And then we put the heater back up there. And without using any screws, it'll hang right there where it's supposed to. That is the proper way for that to be installed. Now I'll put the screws in. booty. That's okay. Yeah, all right, that's how that's supposed to go. I might have to reach in and bend this other one a little bit. Maybe. Perfect. All right. So that's how it installs. You see the blue goes on that side, and pink goes on that side. And you should see that solid bar there with the holes on the bottom, those holes facing down. That is the proper way to install your defrost heater. Next, we will install the defrost heater temperature sensor. Give me just a minute to get set up. Okay, I don't know how well you're going to be able to see this, but I think you'll be able to see it pretty well. This is your defrost heater temperature sensor. This is what tells the defrost heater to cycle on and off to defrost your coils right there. Mine has already been replaced once, I can tell because of the wiring. So I'm just going to go ahead and replace it again. If yours has not been replaced, of course you're going to need to cut these wires and replace them. All right, I'm just going to stand by for a minute. I got to move the camera so I can actually get in there and cut those wires. But if you'll notice, one wire is orange, one wire is pink. One wire up here is orange and one wire is pink. It is very important that you keep the proper color wire with the proper color wire. All right, I'll be right back. Okay, my old defrost temperature sensor has been disconnected. These are the wires where the new ones go. This is the old one. I'm going to keep this because I don't believe it's bad, but I'm fixing to reinstall the new one. I will be using heat shrink tubing on this and foil tape like they use around air conditioning ducts. I don't know if that's important, but that's the way they had it done, so that's the way I'm going to redo it. I'll be right back. Okay, my new defrost heater sensor is ready to go. I've stripped the ends here. The ends there are stripped. I'm going to cut these ends back just a little bit. I made them a little bit too long. But I'm going to discuss something with you called heat shrink tubing. Heat shrink tubing does exactly what it sounds like. It shrinks when you heat it. It's sort of like electrical tape. It's just a way lot easier to use, and it's not sticky. So what I will do, when I join these two wires together, I'm going to want to, you have to seal them with something. You don't want the wires touching each other. So, I don't know if you can see this, but I got a piece of heat shrink tubing here. I'm going to slide it over one wire. I'm sorry, actually. I got one bigger one that I want to cover everything when I'm done. So I'm going to put it in first. Both wires go in. And then I'm going to slide that big one all the way down as far as it'll go so it's out of my way. Now, I'll take the two smaller pieces and I'll slide them on each wire, just one on each wire, and get them out of the way. Get them out of the way. All right, so now, if you can see this, once I put these two wires together, I will slide the heat shrink tubing up to make it cover the wire itself. Once it's covering it, I will heat that heat shrink tubing with just a hot heat gun on, very mild, don't have to cook it, and that it'll shrink real tight and seal those connections up really nice. Then I'll bring this bigger piece up over both of them and I'll seal that one down, wrapping the whole thing up, and it'll be a moisture free. The wires can't touch and short out. It's the way it's supposed to be done. I'm going to get a soldering iron out real quick so I can solder these wires together the proper way. Give me just a moment, I'll let you see that too. Be right back. I just noticed I had to move that camera a little bit. Hopefully you've been able to see everything. So if you heard the word soldering and you got freaked out, don't worry, you do not have to do this. I'm just going to because I like to be thorough. I like to make sure those connections won't come back apart once I put them together. So they make something called soldering paste. This is a good brand name soldering paste. It just sort of looks like whipped cream. What I'll do is dunk the wire down in there and move it around. You see how that's just a plain wire right now. There's no solder paste on it. Give me just a moment. And now you should be able to tell there's some white gooey stuff on the ends. That's solder paste. What that does is the solder dissolves that paste and it makes the solder stick to the wire. I'm letting my soldering gun get heated up right now. We're just about ready to go. See if I can do this where you can see it. I don't know if you can see this or not. But, all right, 1, 2. All right, those are soldered. If you do soldering, try not to breathe that stuff in. If you're new to soldering, if you're not new to soldering, you already know that. All right. I am adding a little bit more solder outside the fridge because that's just hard to do while I'm in there. So that piece is ready. Now I got to put some solder flux on those other 2 wires that are already in there. So let me get in here and just gently rub that around in there, just the wire part. All right, now, let's see. Can you see that stuff hanging off those wires? Where are you? Yeah, you can see it. Anyway, the solder paste is on there, and that stuff will melt, and that will help solder stick to those wires better. Give me just a minute to get the soldering iron and put some solder on those 2 wires. All right, here we go. Super easy, just reach in, give it a little touch. That white gooey stuff melts away. The solder stays. I got to get some more solder for the other side. On my little iron here. All right, reach back in. Touch that one. All the solder flux melts away, but that solder stays. Now I can grab my other sensor. And remember the wire coloring. One is orange, one is pink. You want pink to go to pink and orange to go to orange. So now that I've already got my heat shrink tubing on there, I'm going to reach in, put the pink one next to the pink one, and put some solder on it. And then try to stay still long enough for it to dry. All right, that's horrible. We're going to redo that. Let me get a little more solder. I don't want to have to redo this connection. All right, now let's try this one more time. Melt the solder. It takes just a minute for the solder to dry. This would be a lot easier to do if I could have it out on my desk. Hold on, let me get some more solder. Okay. Try this one more time. Oh. Move the camera and make sure you can still see that. Okay, you can. You want to keep your hands out from underneath that iron, because if you drop any solder, you're going to get the surprise of your life. It will not feel good. All right, soldering is not this hard to do. It's just where I'm cramped inside this refrigerator. So I'm going to move the camera out, do the soldering, and then I'll show you when the soldering's done. Stand by. All right. That is how solder is supposed to look. Those 2 wires are soldered together. Good, a nice, good connection. So now I will use the heat shrink tubing after I set the tripod back down. All right, I'm now going to take care of the heat shrink tubing. I am using a heat gun made by Chandler Tool. Heat gun I got off Amazon. It looks like this. That's pretty close up. I'll back it off later so you can see, or I'll put a link in the description of this video. It just puts out heat. So what I'm going to do first, you remember the 2 red pieces of heat shrink tubing. I'm going to slide them up until they cover the new wires I just soldered. All right, 1, there's 2. And I'll show you what that looks like before I put the heat on them. All right, see how the red piece of heat shrink tubing has been slid up? You can no longer see the wire where I was doing the soldering. It's about halfway in the middle of those 2 red pieces of heat shrink tubing. So they're covered right now. Now I'm going to heat shrink those where they stay tight on that wiring and they protect it. Once I do that, I'll bring up the main black piece that'll cover all of that stuff. I'm going to set the tripod down where you can watch. All right, I added a little light in here where you can see better. You're going to hear some noise here in a minute. That's going to be me turning on this heat gun. It just got a little blower on it. I'm going to wait until it gets hot. I'm just going to take on these wires. And you can literally watch that stuff tighten up. But you just run it up and down a couple times, flip it over to the other side, do the same thing. Just don't hold it in one spot forever. You just want it to shrink up. Beautiful. All right, now let me pick the camera up and give you a good close-up look at that. Let's see here. All right. Now you see how that red, see how it tightened down, and you can see that's where the wire will solder together. That heat shrink tube, and it squeezes on it, so those wires are protected. Now I'm going to slide that big black piece all the way up to cover all of that up and to give a nice clean finish.
Reason the narration did not work properly for this section of the video, so I'm just going to add narration to it, and that's what I'm doing right now. I am completing the heat shrink tubing. I'm moving up the single black piece over the two red pieces I used earlier. The single black piece just ties it all together very beautifully. I'll get my heat gun here in a moment, and I'll start applying heat up and down that piece of heat shrink tubing, and you'll see it shrink. It pulls all those wires together real nicely, keeps everything nice and together how it's supposed to be. See it melting slowly but surely. I'll just go all the way up and down a couple times, and I'll flip it over and do the back side also. Yeah, see it melting? It just pulls everything together and makes it look real beautiful. So the soldered wires under there, I put red heat shrink tubing over each of those individually for protection, and then I put one bigger black piece of heat shrink tubing over all of that. It's a very nice way to put everything back together. Of course, I would have my big old hand right there in the way, but see how pretty that is? And it's all protected, didn't have to use any gray tape. In just a few minutes, I'll tuck all that wire back up there where it goes. I'll put the pink and blue wires you see right there back where they're supposed to go. And there's a green wire in the top right hand corner that doesn't hook to anything. It's got that little clip on the end. I had to figure out where that went back. Turned out to be pretty easy. It just came down and clipped right on the side of that little metal frame, and I show that in the video here in just a few more minutes. Right now I'm putting the heat gun away, then I'm going to come back and start tucking wiring up where it's supposed to go. All right, here we go. What I have in my hand right there, that's the defrost heater sensor. That sensor clips to that line up top, and it can detect when the temperature is cold enough that where the defrost heater needs to come on. My defrost heater was bad, so I went ahead and replaced it and that sensor. Tucking the wiring back up now, and then I'll grab that blue wire and put it over there where it belongs. I'm squeezing it into that little white piece of foam. On the right hand side, I'm grabbing that pink wire and I'm squeezing it into two black pieces of foam. I don't know why there's only one piece of white foam on the left side. It must have fell out. It wasn't there when I took the freezer apart. But that's pretty much back where it needs to go. I just got to tuck those wires in a little better, and then it's all ready to be put back together. So I'll tuck that in a little bit more. Same thing at the top. Tuck the left one in a little better. I have the defrost heater properly mounted at the bottom. That's my new one. It's been put back in. And now everything should work the way it's supposed to. See the white wire on the top left I'm looking at now? That sensor is the freezer temperature sensor. Once I saw where that wire went, I just didn't feel like cutting it and putting the new one back in. Those don't go bad very often. It looks perfect, so I just said, I was hot and tired. I was done. I wasn't going to replace that sensor, so I just decided to leave it. My freezer, if it doesn't work correctly, I'll pull it back apart and replace that. That's like the last thing it could be. But I don't think that was bad. It looked perfect. I was looking at replacing it right now, and once I saw where those wires went, I was like, man, I'm not doing this. So I clamp it back on there, and I was ready to put everything back together. This job, it's not really a hard one to do, but the freezer is kind of narrow, and I'm a huge dude. I couldn't get in there very well, especially not trying to have the camera in there so that you could see what was going on as well. There's a lot of flickering in the videos because of LED lights. This video, it turned out a lot worse than I wanted it to, but maybe it'll help someone get their freezer fixed, their refrigerator fixed. So I clamp that back on and I'm done. The normal audio will resume just as soon as the next clip starts here in a few seconds, so I'm going to go ahead and stop this narration.
All right, that was easy enough. I watched the other guy's video that I'm going to link for you in this video to find out where that goes. And it goes, let me get it out of here. Let's see. It just smushes right on there. But I think I need a little bit more wire. in the world did you get in there? Alright. So this wire, just put pink back where he goes. And then this wire just smashes on right there like that. Get it all the way on. That's all there is to it. Now we are pretty much ready to put the freezer back together again. So I'm going to start putting it back together from the top. I believe. Yeah, I think so. And we'll plug her in and she should be good to go. Be right back while I get some tools. Okay, I'm going to begin reinstalling everything. There are 2 screws up here and up here that need to be tightened down first once your ice maker is put on them, and make sure your ice maker plug is plugged in. I never had to unplug that myself, but you may have to. If you do, it's no big deal. It just snaps back in place. You'll need a 1/4 inch socket. And if you use a long extension like I am, it makes things so much better. All right, there's 1. There's 2. All right, next we're going to reinstall the motor that turns the gear that brings your ice out. Let me look at this for a minute to see how it gets installed. Okay, I got it. 1, 2 screws, and 1 on that side. Okay, so you'll notice there are 2 brackets here and there are 1 bracket here. Your refrigerator may be different, so take a look at it as you're pulling it out. Make a video like I do if you have to with your phone. Super easy to do, and then you might not get messed up putting it back together. But either way, this isn't as much as it looks like. It's pretty easy. So to put this part back in, it has a plug. It has to be hooked up back here on the right hand side. And I've got my phone right in the way, so bear with me for a minute while I make a ton of noise. All right, I'm gonna hook this cable up first. What a pain in the butt. All right, phone's got, as you can see, the phone has to come out. So I'll show you when it's back in. Be right back. Okay, the gear drive that turns your ice maker that gives you ice is back in. 2 screws on the very left side, 1 screw on the very right hand side. And those screws are pretty short. As you can see there's 3 of them. They're the same size as the ones you just put in up top. I found the same size screw everywhere in here. So at least you only need that 1 size socket. Be right back while I put those screws in. Okay, those screws are back in. 2 on the left, 1 on the very right hand side. Sorry for the noise in the bottom. The plug that it has a plug on the back of it that plugs into the very back of the freezer. It'll only fit 1 spot and it will only fit 1 way. Look at the plug before you put it in, and then look at the places in your fridge where you could plug a plug, and you'll be able to tell where it goes. It just snaps right on. You'll hear it go click. It goes in really easy, and you're done with this part. Now I will put there's a shroud that covers right here. That's going in next. Give me just a moment. All right, yours truly made a boo-boo. Before you put that piece back in, this has to go in first. See, it has that little vent, these little ridges. It's shaped like that. Well, that vent goes in. See if I can do this one-handed. Goes in. Got to get it behind those brackets. And you see those 2 screws? There'll be 2 screws up there where it hooks on. I'll show you those in just a minute. Let me get it installed. Be right back. All right. So you have to take the top 2 bolts right there on either side of that hose, right here and right here. Sorry, that's so dark. Those are your ice maker bolts. You don't need to take them all the way out, just loosen them. Once you loosen them, the ice maker, it'll just sit right on there like that. Loosen those 2 screws, lift the ice maker up, and then just lay it down. That way you can get this in there on those 2 screws and set it down. See how they're right there and right there? Man, that light just sucks. All right, those are your ice maker screws. You'll just loosen them, pick up the ice maker, lay it over to the side, and then down here, right there on that side, and right here on this side, that's where that bracket sits down. And then there's 2 more screws right here and here that you're gonna put on, or I'm sorry. Yeah, that is right there that you'll put on. So let me put my I'm gonna tighten those 2 screws first, because the ice maker will be in the way if you don't. We'll tighten that one down. And we'll tighten that one down. All right, now we're gonna make sure your ice maker's still plugged in. Lift the ice maker back up. Make sure you tuck that white piece under your hose. That's where your water pours in your ice. Set the ice maker back down. Now you're gonna tighten those 2 screws up. Lord have mercy. Y'all bear with me just a minute, I'm sorry. This is how stuff goes when you're working on it. I'm not even gonna edit any of this stuff out. Karma of the universe obviously wants me to have a difficult time. So I'm gonna share it with you. All right. Hold on just a moment. Put this bit back in the drill. All right, now, get the camera back, tighten up that last ice maker bolt. All right, now I gotta find the 2 screws that go here and here and put those back on. And then there are 2 that go here and here to tighten that down. And then the last thing to do will be to put the big white panel on right there and then just reassemble all your shelves, plug the refrigerator back in and test. So stand by just a moment. All right, now we got the dispenser motor reinstalled, 2 screws on your left, 1 on the right hand at the bottom. There's a white plug right behind it to the right hand side. It only plugs in one way, so you can't get it wrong if you try. So you get that plugged in, make sure it snaps all the way in, put your 3 screws in, and we're ready to put the ice bin back in. Stand by just a moment, we put these screws in. Okay, we have now replaced that screw and that screw, and then on this side there's only one, that screw. Then we've come down here and we've put a screw there and a screw through here. Something to note, the screw goes through this piece and the one under it. These 2 screws down here, you're not going to put in just yet until you get the shield that covers your coils right there. So hold on just a minute and I'll get that. All right, this is the shield. This is the last piece that goes in. Your vents go toward the bottom. I'm going to show you a little trick. You see all these plastic clips on the right hand side and there's nothing on the left hand side? If you will insert the right hand side of the shield first, get it all the way behind those clips, and then just push it into place. And now you want to push it all the way back till it snaps in there. And you can see those last 2 screws, they go through the shield and through that plastic into the hole. There's only 2 screws on mine. There may be more on yours. So put those 2 screws in, push the shield back as far as it'll go, and you're done. Then you can put the ice bins and all of your shelves and stuff back in, plug the fridge in and test. Give me just a moment to reassemble mine, tighten those screws down, push that shield back, and I'll be right back. Okay, that was 2 Phillips head screws. One right here that went through the metal and the plastic, and then one on the other side, same thing, Phillips head screw. And then you just want to push back on the shield and make sure it's all the way back. You see how it goes beyond that hump? It just pushes back. And when it stops, you know, you ain't got to be super strong with it, just put it in there. That's reinstalled correctly. Now I have to put in two shelves somewhere. I can't remember exactly where, but I'll figure it out in just a minute. And I'll be right back. I remember what it was now. These are 2 brackets that go down here in the very bottom. There's one on the left, one on the right, and they support the drawer that goes down in the very bottom. So I'm going to put those back in real quick. I'll be right back. Okay, those are reinstalled. If you notice, there's a little tiny lip only on one end. Those must face out and stand straight up. What those do is they stop your little basket from sliding all the way out. So you know you have them installed correctly if your basket goes right there and stops. Okay, now to put the rest of the shelves back in, that's easy stuff. And put the drawer in that catches the ice maker ice, that's also easy. I'll be right back. This is just the drawer that sits up on top of your ice maker. And it goes in just like that. Sits right there. Just like that. It can't go any further if it wants to. Then your ice maker basket goes under that. Sorry for the flashlight flashing if you're seeing that. Be right back. Okay, next ice maker tray. Just slides right in there and catches. Oh, hey, grasshopper got in there. We'll release him real quick. Come here, Mr. Grasshopper. Just relax, don't panic. Don't panic, Mr. Grasshopper. We're going to save you. All right, Mr. Grasshopper is safe. And we'll go back and put this in. Continue putting the rest of the stuff up. If this repair works, then I can give this thing a good detail. All right, I've only got some wire shelves to put back in, so I'm going to do that. Be right back. All right, all 4 shelves are put back in. One shelf will be shorter than the rest. The shorty is your one up top. They don't have quite enough room to go back that far, so that's that. I'm going to plug the fridge in now. I have a thermostat to set inside to see, or a thermometer, I'm sorry, to see what it gets to. It would not go below 45 degrees before. So I'm going to give it a couple hours to test, and I'll come back out here and check the temperatures. All right, stand by. It'll only be a minute for you, or a second. All right, the last thing is plugged back in now. Last thing you want to do is what I call the fire test. If you've replaced any wires or spliced them back together, plug your device back in and just hang around for a few minutes and see if you smell smoke, see if you see smoke. I smell no smoke. Excuse my titty cup. She seems okay. I'm going to fill up all my ice trays over there, see if she makes ice. Put my thermometer back in there so I can see what she gets down to. Right now it's a steamy 90 degrees in here. All right, I'm burning alive, so let me get these ice trays filled up so I can go inside, and we'll come back out in an hour and look at the temperature. Appreciate you hanging in there. Okay, it has been approximately 2 hours since I repaired this refrigerator. It was 90 degrees in the freezer when I shut the door almost 2 hours ago. Now we're going to see what it is after 2 hours. It is 65 degrees, so it's definitely dropping. Not made no ice yet, but it is dropping. Oh, definitely getting cooler. All right, it's been 7 hours now since the fix. Let's see what the temperature is. All right, below 30 degrees, 28 degrees. We have ice forming. She's fixed. See how cold the fridge is. Oh, beautiful, beautiful. All right, that's official. $28 worth of parts, she's fixed. I will come back out here tomorrow morning and check the temperatures again. We should have ice. If we do, we'll know it worked, but I believe it already did. Thank you for hanging in there. If you found this video useful, or you enjoyed it, please consider giving a thumbs up, maybe even subscribe to the channel, share the video. That helps YouTubers more than you know. Thank you and have a great day.